Well, I'm here in the Arts Cafe with Anna. Hello, Anna.
Hey, Al.
And we're joined from Paris by Irene Torra Mohedano. And she has a book that she's published called The Conquest of Space. And most of the poems in this book are in Spanish. A couple are in French, and one is in English. And we're going to talk about the English poem, which is actually a couple of haikus. And I'll read it in English, and then I'll invite Irene to read it in English, and then we'll talk about it. It's called Sandra's Haikus. The snow was falling, and we had no words to say, freezing and voiceless. What will you do next? Try to find out who I am. Then fly. It's time now. Irene, will you read it?
Yeah, well. The snow was falling, I would have no words to say, freezing and voiceless. What would you do next? Try to find out who I am. Don't fly. It's time now.
Anna, that conversation in the second stanza.
Yeah.
What's going on there? Who's talking? What kind of conversation is this? The kind of conversation you have with people?
Oh, sure. When I talk about my, wings. What I love is that contrast between the first stanza and the second. The first stanza suggests this, we can't speak, we have nothing to say, we're voiceless, we're
cold.
Frozen, it's cold.
Mm-hmm.
And in the second, it's I can't go on, I must go on, I'll go on,
What will you do next?
What will you do next?
Words, as it's a non sequitur, but it also continues.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So one speaker asks to another, what are you going to do next? And the speaker responds, well, try to find out who I am. And the first speaker, I think, then responds,
then get going.
Go.
Yeah.
Yeah, time to fly.
Irene, that last line, it's a bit smart alecky. It's a bit wise. Go ahead, then fly.
Yeah.
Now's the time for you to find out about yourself. Is that the correct interpretation of that last line?
Yes, it is. It's the time, and the time is now.
Yeah. No time like the present.
Yeah.
Irene, what's the relationship? So these are, the title says haikus, so one imagines two poems joined together. So that's the natural next question is, what do the two have to do with each other? So now we have the poet here, and we can ask her, what do the two have to do with each other?
Well, they were not thought as something that was going to be necessarily together, but they were created together. And, well, I think that Anna really described perfectly the relationship with this first stanza, this first time of silence and cold. And I don't know, snow is such a cold and silent thing. And then this second stanza of action somehow. And you have words and you have actions. And I think it's like a linear, chronological relationship between the first time, more reflection time, and action time in the second one.
Yeah. Well, let's all three provide one more comment each on the question of the paradox of a poet writing a poem in which the first stanza becomes that almost Wallace Stevensian, it's so cold, I have nothing to say, I can't say, but of course I'm saying it because I'm a poet. In other words, when a poet says we have no words to say, and then she's recorded that, there's a paradox. So let's all three of us comment on that. You first, Anna.
Well, we have no words to say, right? But we have some words that we wrote.
Right.
Because we have this poem.
Mm-hmm.
So there is, I think, maybe a distinction or a difference being drawn between what can be said as in given voice to versus what can be written. And sometimes those are different.
Irene, what do you think about this paradox?
Yeah, there are some times that we can say things without words. And, well, there are maybe other ways to say things, even if we have no words.
One of the reasons I like this poem so much is the connection between that voicelessness and the wordlessness of the first stanza and the intent to discover identity. Who am I? It's almost as if shut out because of the cold from words, we are left to find out who we are. So it's simply not like, check, did another poem, have words, not voiceless, warmed up by my words, right? Not that. And when you are deprived of that, then you get self-discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah. One quick last question. Most of your poems are in Spanish, a few in French. This one is in English. Why? What was there something about this particular topic that made you write in English, or what? What's going on in the life of a Spanish language poet writing in English?
I would say it appeared more as a writing exercise, probably, but there's something also in English language which is so much more an action language than Spanish or French, probably is so much more concise and precise. So maybe there's something there.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, the poem is Sandra's Haikus. We didn't find out who Sandra was. Is it significant who Sandra is?
Not that much, but it appeared from that. It triggered probably. She triggered it.
Oh, I see. There is a Sandra who triggered it. Okay, got it. And also another footnote is the first line of the poem is from Wallace Stevens' 13 Ways of Looking at a Blackbird, which when I saw you in Paris last week, you said was not intentional, or was? I can't remember which you said.
It was not. I haven't even read Wallace Stevens when I wrote that. So.
Yeah, so it's just, and you probably encountered that poem in ModPo. How ironic is that? Yeah. So the book is The Conquest of Space. It is available. I think you can just go to Amazon and buy it. Is that there? Yeah, you can. And we are expecting a new book of poems, not to put too much pressure on you, Irene, in the next, some time. So we hope we see another one. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
This year, thank you for joining us from Paris. And Anna, thank you for joining us from Philadelphia.
Oh.
It doesn't have the same.
No.
Right.
Oh, it does for me. Thank you very much.
Okay, good final
there
thought.
It is.
Thank you all.
If you liked this episode, watch another and subscribe.
And join us for ModPo, a free and open course at modpo.org.